Thank you, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I'm going to talk about climate change and the gender vulnerabilities and looking at the linkages that are often not addressed. We know that there are real obligations that women, have real needs that are not met, needs and perspectives that are not usually often spoken about. Climate change adds to women's sufferings in a way that is different from men. It adds to their poverty because of the combination of so many factors that we know, like patriarchy, like norms, gender norms, poverty, environmental degradation caused by climate change. Even though there have been a lot of talk about women issues, often we don't link them in a way that actually speaks to other areas that women suffer a lot from. We often want to show women like weak, powerless, and species that don't add value, in quote. But we want to bring out the fact that women don't belong to this space. What we belong to are proactiveness, even during tumor, war, and conflicts. I like to use Africa as a good example. I'm an African, and I'll be specific about Ghana and Nigeria. Why am I saying this? Because this climate change affects the poorer countries like Africa, for example, where Ghana and Nigeria is part of. We bear the brunt in spite of the fact that we produce less of the green gases, but we bear a lot of the problems, and women face more of these challenges. So we have to link that together with the social issues that affect women, the everyday experience of women, particularly African women now, the everyday experiences of women who are farmers, women who are seed savers, women who are local women rights activists. These experiences show us the gap, the gender disparities that we want to establish the link and the vulnerability that this causes, especially with the advent of climate change. This is not immune to other countries, women from other countries, but I'm just focusing specifically within the African setting. In spite of all the research that has been going on, we need to also remember that there's still more research to be done, looking at connecting women's defenselessness. I mean, often we talk about women being defenseless and all that. Yes, we are to some extent, but we also need to talk about women's strength, where women perform roles that are not often spoken about, especially connected to climate change and its impact. There are rules and strategies that are meant to develop and strengthen the knowledge and capability of local communities, like communities in the northern region of Ghana, like Wa, for example. It has proven unsuccessful, knowing that the gendered nature of everyday realities of women and their experiences are not often spoken about. They are not often linked to reality. It is, totally unnoticed or perhaps erroneously formulated when gender policies are being developed. I know we can already see the link with other women issues. Often women issues are handled this way. Perhaps stereotype or how we portray women. We often see women as at risk, feeble, wretched, poor, and socially removed from others within the society, even within the communities For example, in Wa now or Navrango, women are seen as weak. They are the ones who will do who will perform roles that are already assigned right from when they're born as girls till they mature as women. They perform roles that are specifically meant for them just because they are women, and they are seen as weak and wretched, feeble. Often they believe that the girl child would not live, to survive the christening day. Why? Because they are not even fed with nutritious food like the boy child will be fed with nutritious food. They are preferred to the girl's child, and they are better taken care of right from birth. So they view women as valueless. And though this is changing, it's not as prominent as it was before, but it's still there. So instead of seeing them as beings that are interrelating, that capable of negotiating and connecting habitually with various types of change in their lives, they don't see that, they don't connect that. So, but men are often seen as strong, able to hold conversation, able to hold community together because of their power. And this is tied to norms that discriminate against women. Policy needs to define and outline the terms of climate change and how it impacts us very well by linking all of this. What arises on ground is actually the diversity, the intersectionality, and the daily nature of the risk and anxieties that define life for poor people. Bottom line, poor people bear the brunt most. And when you're talking about poor people, women are down there. They're the lowest when it comes to that. You talk the poor, real poor people are women in Africa. They are the ones who work on farms. They're the ones who, when the men bring the fish after going to the sea and they're back, they bring fish, the women who fry this fish and sell in the market space. They do all sorts of menial jobs that are paid for less and that are very tedious, and they are at risk, and they still have to come home to fetch water, to walk long distances from 2-3 villages. You can leave Wa and move to Navrango, move to Nabushe, all in the northern region of Ghana, where you have drought, seeking water, seeking feeds for cow and all that. These cows are male owned. Women don't have access even to land, yet they bear the brunt for all that happens most of the time. And these are not recognized. They don't speak of women being strong. Can a weak person perform all those roles? They don't look at that. They don't link that together. So the diversity, the intersectionality, the daily nature of the risk and anxiety that define the life of women is often not spoken about. We need to recognize this. We need to recognize the intersecting, overlapping, and interconnecting nature of this risk. Talking about geophysical, agroecological, socioeconomic, and the differences in vulnerability and exposure arising from non-climatic factors that this disparity, risk, and possibilities have on women. It's immense. Therefore, we must develop a very comprehensive understanding of this gender vulnerability arising from this increasing poverty coming from climate change. And recently, we know what COVID has brought. COVID has brought more harm to women because women were more vulnerable to COVID. In Ghana here, lots of women were, tied within the four corners of their homes during COVID because of the rules. And as a result of that, they got to understand the real men that they are living with, the men they call their husbands, who now had to spend more time with them by virtue of the lockdown, and they were being either raped or abused. And on top of that, the poverty increased because they couldn't go out to work in the market space. They couldn't go out to fish, to smoke fish, to till the land. Women do a lot of subsistence farming, and men don't engage in that. Women are the ones who do most of that, and men engage in, crops like cocoa that bring big money, cash crops. But women are made not to, do those things because they are women in quotes. They are weak. They don't have even the capital to engage in that. So you discover that the poverty increased as a result of COVID, and came the increase as well in abuse of women, gender-based violence. So women in this way are vulnerable, and they couldn't go out. And as a result, they are poorer, and they had more issues with their men who, became impatient. There were cases of women who were murdered because their husbands demanded for money and they couldn't give them money. So the abuse is also economical. So when women go out to work, when they earn money, it is believed to be monies that should be handed over to their husbands. That's the painful part of it. The men control them, control the economy. The money they earn. So how then can a woman ever become independent? So we often teach them that you need to manage your finances. It's your money. You need to, control it to a large extent. This doesn't usually happen. So they get killed. Recently, there was a case of a very popular woman called Sinachi in Nigeria, whose husband has been dealing with her in spite of her education and exposure. She's been handing money over to her husband, and it just occurred to her that, look, I work for this money, I own this money, I should have my rights to it. And she refused him, and that led to her death. It's on social media. So you can imagine how COVID has dealt with women and the environment as well. So we need to recognize this overlapping and connecting nature of risk that women face. We must also develop a comprehensive understanding of this gendered vulnerability arising from this poverty that we talk about, social discrimination, social cultural practices and norms, not only in Africa, but I choose to talk about Africa just to narrow it down. And we should also remember that the social class now is not only the poor woman who suffered this, even the so-called educated women. Some women are educated. We've had issues of women who report to our units about how they have been battered. They are educated women, professionals, who face all this same thing that the poor, uneducated woman face because of the institutionalized patriarchy and toxic masculinity. So
Ayo,
we need to
Ayo, sorry to interrupt you, but you have 2 more minutes left. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I was just taking my time. Okay, I have to. Sorry, I'm sorry. I wasn't watching the time. So the inadequacy of the need to not only recognize this and understand the different strategies and ways that women use in coping, with all the issues around climate change, economic issues that tied to their gender, has to be linked with the problems of climate change. It has to be related to it as well. We don't look at it in a vacuum. If not, we'll not address this problem. So we need to understand the issues concerning access to natural resources like water, like land and money. This is very critical. And we need to connect it to societal norms and values, to social and gender roles and cultural identities in the different contexts that women find themselves. So the question, for example, is, does dissimilarities in domestic structures and marital relationship or division of labor and rights affect what we're talking about? Does it shape adaptation? Or, are there compromises and choices that people make between nurturing social relationship of mutual benefits, are they not interconnected? Are they not adapting or pursuing personal well-being as well? What are we talking about when we're talking about vulnerability of marginalized groups such as women who are not recognized for what they really stand for? I mean, often they are deficient in resources and they are victims of discriminatory traditional practices and norms. On top of the climate change issues that they face, as I mentioned, they are the ones who have to go look for water. They are the ones who have to provide feeds. They are the ones who have to go to the farm and perform all sorts of roles. And also developmental issues that affect women are also part of this burden and the survival of their households, because women actually are the ones who take care of the homes. They're the ones who are burdened with duty of fetching water, firewood, and producing food for their families. So we need to link all of this.
Sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to stop, please. But thank you very much indeed. Do you have like a 30-second wrap?
Did you give me more time to round up, please?
Yes, please. You may have 1 more minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So in a nutshell, women's productive labor, their legal equity and their de facto equality must be recognized and promoted beyond production and reproduction. If not, I mean, we'll not be addressing the real issues that the poor women particularly face. And we need to look at their context too. We need to look at patriarchy. We need to look at all the vulnerability that women often have to adapt to, and know that they are not just women we see as, I mean, portrayed as weak, but these are women who are strong, who are able to hold their own, who are able to hold families and communities together in the way that are not often spoken about. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayo.